Hey everyone, and welcome to Living by the Law, the podcast discussing fictional worlds and how wondrous and ridiculous they are. My name is Matt, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Jude and Guy. Living by the Law is not currently sponsored. If you wish to sponsor us, go to your collection of books and pick up the biggest and dustiest book and yell into page 294. We will hear you. We always do.
Today we will be discussing the Second Age of Middle-earth from J.R.R. Tolkien's fictional universe. Bear in mind that given the complex nature of Tolkien's work, and my co-host's lack of knowledge about any of it, there are a few simplifications of terms so as to not confuse them too much. Of course, this may contain spoilers for parts of Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and The Silmarillion. So, today we are discussing Middle-earth from Tolkien's world, specifically the Second Age.
Oh.
What about the
why
first?
not the first one?
So, I did prepare this because I knew that was going to be your very first
Very
question.
first question.
What about the other one? Predicted.
I predicted
We had
this.
to bring this up,
Okay.
Jude.
So, the Third Age, I'll just quickly mention that part, is the time when Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, all of that shit happens in the Third Age, okay?
Ah, yes, the good shit.
That quality stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the one that
but
was
also-
way too long in movies and way too long in books.
That's your opinion.
Anyway, shut up, you were meant to enjoy it. Then the First Age is yonks before that. That is when, to put it very simply, because this is a very huge thing that could have like multiple episodes on it, the First Age, it's when the elves were the main dominant race and the gods god figures. There's a lot of simplification in this episode because if I use the proper terminology, it would just kind of confuse you two a bit too much.
Listen, I'll be honest, that's 99% of the reason why I haven't gotten into these films is because I just cannot deal with the amount of umlauts and weird symbols and just Koforknas.
So First Age is when the gods were created.
Sort of. There's
Okay.
not when the gods were created. So before the First Age, there's a whole bunch of other things which
Nice.
is too complicated to get into with
The
you two
Zeroed
right
Age.
now.
The Zeroed Age.
Sort of. There's like the Year of Trees and all sorts of other stuff.
Oh, I love that one. That's my
And
favorite.
during this time is when the world itself is shaped, if you will.
By who?
Getting to that.
Okay, so that's First Age. But we should probably keep on the topic and go back to the Second Age.
That's right. I'm just. Let me explain, boy.
Sorry.
So First Age. Quick thing with that. That is when the elves are the main dominant race. Elves super OP. Men not so much. Men are just kind of there. They aren't very important in the First Age. They kind of just exist.
They're never important.
Are elves not always super OP?
Yeah, they're always super OP.
Yes, but in the Second Age in the First Age rather, you have elves who are literally walking up to gods and having like a massive duel with them. You've got elves who are like single-handedly taking on dragons, shit
I
like
see.
You know what?
Whereas
Humans were always outclassed. I feel like humans get the bad rap, right? So they're like the normal default
Actually-
guys. And then there's not a single other people that's worse than the humans. It's always like elves got the better powers, dwarves are stronger. It's always the humans get fucked over.
no. Yeah, that's the thing. Humans
actually-
can fuck more.
Well, actually, you'll see soon. So as we get into the Second Age, the Second Age is actually when the humans are really, really powerful.
Really, really fucking.
Potentially more powerful than the elves, actually. Which
Oh.
Ooh.
yeah, we'll get into. So a quick thing as well, just to make a bit more explanation. The main god of the entire Tolkien universe is Eru Ilúvatar.
What?
Please say that again.
Pardon, one more time.
Eru Ilúvatar.
Eru Ilúvatar. Is there going to be a test?
Eru the Luva.
No.
Is there going to be a test at the end of this?
Aren't Luvas
Definitely
those
not.
little fluffy little blinds?
Eru
Here we
Ilúvatar.
go. Yep.
Eru
Sounds
the
like
Luva.
Okay.
It sounds like a
So-
Pokemon's name.
I'm
Sure.
taking notes.
So he is the
Oh, God,
like
taking notes.
main god.
There we go.
And then underneath him, you have these powerful spirits called the Aenir.
Yeah.
And and the Aenor are sort of like godlike beings.
No, too much
you've
click.
got-
Too much click. Put it away. Don't take notes.
Oh shit! Is the clicking too loud?
Yeah, it was really loud.
Yo,
Oh,
my
Jesus.
my keyboard is crazy. So that's
Okay.
fair.
So you've got the
there's
Aenor.
they're like demigods.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
This is one of the things that I like a lot and find interesting in Tolkien's world, because you know how normally in fantasy you've either got the one main god or a pantheon.
Yeah.
Tolkien's universe kind of has both, because you've got Eru, who's the main one who created everything, and then underneath him you have this entire pantheon of gods.
Uh huh.
In the Aenor, there's like thousands of these guys. There's lots and lots and lots of them. Like they're, but the thing with them, they aren't exactly all equal.
Yeah. Okay.
You've got 15 of them, which are the most powerful of all the Aenor, and they are called the Valar.
I've heard of those.
Yeah, the Valar are the gods, pretty much.
Okay, so
generally speaking.
There's kind of okay. So this is one god who's the god of everything, and then there's like
God supreme.
gods. Then there's like gods under that.
Yep.
Okay,
And
so the Valar
these
are like
guys.
okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yep. These guys, the Valar, are the main ones who, after Eru kind of created the world, they are the ones that were sent into the world to shape it, to be a place where things can live and can just have life.
Okay.
So,
So that's why
they-
they're kind of the main pantheon of gods.
They made shit.
Yeah,
and
basically.
they interacted with the stuff that they made?
Yep, heavily.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, so what about the 6 of them? What about the other
15.
15? The other 15? What do they do?
Yeah.
Oh, there's 15 Valar.
Yeah, 15 Valar, and then the rest of the Aenor are referred to as Maya.
The Maya. Okay.
Maya.
Yep.
Oh, that's like the Balrog. Nope, wrong.
Yep.
Yes.
Nope, that is 100% correct.
And
Hey.
isn't Gandalf one of them?
Gandalf is another Maya, yes.
I
And the
remember,
Eagles.
One thing.
Yep, Eagles, they are powerful Maya.
Yo,
and
we're hitting all the tips
I
right
looked at the
And there
Wikipedia
is-
article for like 2 minutes before this. So I'll be honest. I'm
and
hitting it out.
other important thing as well, potentially the most famous and most important of all the Maya, is of course Sauron.
Okay.
Ah, so Sauron.
Most famous is kind of an interesting way to put it.
So,
Yep.
so these guys are both good and bad then.
Yep. So that all comes back to one of the Valar, who is called Morgoth.
Oh, I've heard that. Isn't he like
Yeah.
Satan?
Kind of, yeah. He is like the fallen angel style evil Valar.
Oh, Valar.
And
So he's like
pretty much
Lucifer. He fell from heaven.
kind of, yeah, basically. It's very kind of the way you, especially like reading the Silmarillion chapters toward the start, which talk a lot about that. There's definitely some connection there.
Illusion.
Other thing that's, yes. Other fairly important thing to note as well. He is one of the more powerful Valar as well. Go figure. The fallen evil one's very powerful. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
he's
it's gotta be.
the one. Yeah, of course. He's the one that more or less creates all of the evil races in Middle Earth.
Excellent. Are there wait. In Middle Earth, are there defined good and evil races where all are good or all are evil?
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah. So is there there's a definitive being of good and evil? You can't.
Because
like,
there's some shitty humans.
Yeah.
Well, that is on that. It is kind of one of the things in Lord of the Rings throughout the ages. It starts off very black and white. In the first age, there is good and there is evil. It is very, very simple. Either you are elves or worshippers of the Valar, and you are good. Obviously, you do get some things that happen between the good beings, but even if they fight and maybe aren't always the best people, they are still good beings. And then you have evil, which are followers and creations of Morgoth.
Okay. So like.
But-
okay. For example, does
Hmm?
does an orc ever go? I don't like this guy. I'm going to be a good guy.
No.
Is there 14 good Valar, or are most of them just lazy and don't get involved?
Yes, there are 14 good Valar.
So they couldn't even take down one guy.
That's
They
like
do.
Vold. What the hell? That's not
Come on.
Put some effort in, my guys.
There's one guy. There's one guy.
1v14.
Just
get
let
him,
me
get
let
him.
me. They 100% do.
They get
and I'm
him.
getting to that.
They get him,
Yes,
boys.
they.
We
Oh,
did it.
they very.
We did it.
Oh, they get him. They get
We
him.
did it. Woo. We beat the second age. Woo.
Jesus Christ.
No. This is all first stage stuff, which I'm just quickly
Okay.
wrapping up before we actually start the second
okay.
age,
Yeah.
because it's just
Fair
very
enough.
important. I'll try to wrap it up in just like a couple minutes because it's kind of important for the start of the second age.
So we'll stop interrupting.
Anyway, yeah, that's right. Just to quickly get through this, then you can band as much as you want in the second age, because that's where. Oh god, I'm terrified already. So, first age, you've got Morgoth. He's starting his own like evil followers. He creates Balrogs. He creates dragons. Everything like that is created by Morgoth.
Love dragons.
Then he is slowly corrupting what is. So the area of land which is Middle Earth at the moment, and then there used to be a continent to the direct west of Middle Earth, like an entire whole area of land, and that is where the elves mainly lived. And then to the far, far west, there was another continent called the Undying Lands, which, go figure, is where the elves and the Valar mainly live these days, and
Question.
where the Valar have always lived. Yep.
Sphere? Or...
Flat Earth.
That is
Flat
an
Earth,
interesting
yeah.
thing, because at this point the world is flat.
What? Did you just say at this point?
At this point, the world is flat.
That's a kind of odd little
What?
point to make.
Yep, you will see. So the world is flat. You've got the
What?
very far west. You've got a continent, which, once again, just for the sake of simplification, I'm going to call the Westlands. They are the Undying Lands. That's where you've got
Sure.
huge amounts of elves living there. You've got all the Valar live there, etc. And then also got loads of elves that live in the main continent area.
So Middle Earth got elves, West Middle Earth got elves, West Middle Earth got East evil boys. No? Am I off point?
No.
Damn it.
Morgoth, his area is kind of around where Middle Earth and the old Western continent, which
Right.
used to exist.
Okay.
So that's the main reason. For the most part, the Valar, while they could take on Morgoth, they choose not to, because he's, as far as they're concerned, they aren't really bothered by him anymore, because they have their lands, he has his lands. Sure, there's some elves that live there and are being attacked by Morgoth, but as far as the Valar are concerned, those elves made the decision to live there.
So they're just
it's kind of like
they're
a-
just a bit lazy.
They're just not doing their jobs.
They've kind of got their own shit to do back in Valar.
Yeah.
Back in their
sit
own
around
Valar
and
lands.
enjoy life. I love that.
Yeah. Anyway. So, Morgoth doing his thing. Elves try to fight against Morgoth. Doesn't go particularly well for the elves. They end
As
up
you might
losing pretty much everything.
Yeah. That's fair.
And then there is what's called the War of Wrath. Which, huge war. The Valar, so the other 14 gods basically get together, go, okay, we need to stop this dude, he's getting pretty bad now. They go with basically the entire, like, array of all the good beings in the world, so, like, thousands of Maya, they've got, like, eagles with them, they've got loads of elves, they've got some men that chose to fight with them, and they all go to war against Morgoth.
Wait, thousands of Maya. Wow, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of Maya.
Okay.
Anyway, and they all go to war with Morgoth. They defeat him, and then they banish him into the abyss. Basically, he's gone from the world. So
Was
to
there a
speak.
temptation there to continue into the full Elvish script or whatever the fuck it is?
Maybe. Just yeah.
So can I ask a question?
End of yep, for sure.
In this war, why didn't the big god, I forgot his name, or Eru, why didn't he do anything about Morgoth? Is he good or
Directly
bad?
He does interfere with the world on 3 occasions.
Oh, Jesus.
But for the most part, he's pretty, what's the word?
Hands off.
Transcendent, like completely outside of the world. Like he's completely
He's too good
detached
for
from it.
He's too good
Totally
for
too good for it.
Kind of. He's pretty just detached from it, so he doesn't have a physical presence on the world, whereas the Valar do.
enough.
Anyway, but the 3 times that he does make an appearance, which I'll mention now because I don't know, I like the last one; it's kind of amusing. So the first time was during the Year of the Trees when Eru created and awoke men.
So he created men.
Yep, he created men.
That's
That
pretty
wasn't one of the
created men.
14 of the Valar. Morgoth's doing all the work, and
That's pretty special.
Eru's, their fucking dad's doing their homework for them.
Nice.
Well, so yes, Eru created men and elves.
Okay, right.
Okay, so he put all his work into one, and then was like, "Oh yeah, I gotta make a
Hey,
second."
but listen,
Yeah,
you got to give it to those other 14 Valar. They did make hobbits.
Anyway, and then the second time was during the Second Age at the very end. I will save that intervention for later because it's a bit of one of the big climactic points of the Second Age.
Fair enough.
And then the third time is, I suppose, not necessarily official, but it was written by Tolkien in a letter, stating that Eru intervened for a third time during the Third Age, and it was him that caused Gollum to trip and fall into Mount Doom while he was holding the One Ring and destroyed it.
Really?
Yep.
Are you serious?
Yep.
He's like, nah, screw this guy. I'm gonna make him trip over.
The
I'm
god
all
of
powerful
gods
god.
came down to
Just gonna
trip
make
my
this guy
boy
trip
into
over.
the volcano. That is such... How can you get rooted on harder than that?
Like I like how it's like Frodo failed, didn't cast ring into the fire, and then he's like, God, I have to do this myself. And he comes in and
exactly.
just makes him trip over.
Now I'm imagining fucking Eru sitting back with like a bowl of popcorn, just enjoying the entire series, just watching this whole thing, and him just being like a sports fan yelling at a TV screen to get his team to do better. Except he can actually put his finger into the screen and trip over one of the players directly into a fucking volcano.
He's watching.
"Alright,
He's
fine."
watching from the storm, but he throws like a rock at the teams while watching sport.
God, I
Okay.
love Tolkien.
Yeah.
Incredible. Continue.
So yeah, that's the 3 times he intervenes. We'll get to
Excellent.
the second one because that's pretty important later on for this whole Second Age discussion. Anyway, so that's very, 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 very rough kind of wrap up of First Age stuff because it's kind of important to have a very base understanding before the Second Age.
I feel like an expert.
The last thing, the last thing I will mention about the Maya in particular, they are spirits, so they don't really die when they get destroyed. They're just diminished for a time, and then their power comes back. So think Gandalf when he got destroyed by the Balrog while fighting the Balrog.
Okay.
He didn't really die. He was just reduced back to a spirit, and then the Valar Manwë was just like, okay, nope, you're needed. Let's get you right back out there as quick as we can. Go on, go
He's
on.
like, I wanted 1 day of rest.
Please, God.
Yep.
So
Essential
like
workers right now.
they're like in, for example, Greek mythology, monsters never die. They are reduced and they get put back to Tartarus, and then they eventually crawl their way out of the underworld and come back to the real world.
Yeah,
That's how they work. That's how Greek mythology works. It's not monsters. That's why monsters keep popping up in the same monsters in different stories. And that guy killed him. That guy also killed them because they can never really die.
I'd like to more put it in generic terms. I think it's like a shift at work, where every time you think, it's probably time for me to tap out, you walk into the back office and your manager goes, are you heading out? And you go, yeah, I think so. And they go, could you extend for another couple of hours? Could you extend for another couple of millennia? Just kind of chill out for a while. We've got some more jobs for you to do. And you're like, alright, fuck. And you turn
We've
around
got some
and walk
hobbits
back
for you
out.
to watch. We've got some hobbits for you
Got
to
some
watch.
hobbits for you to chill out and help.
Yeah.
Anyway, but other important thing with the Maiar as well, they don't have a set physical form. They're just a spirit.
So Gandalf chooses
So
to look
take-
like that.
Yes.
Gandalf chooses to look like that and then chooses to look like that again, but cooler.
Yes.
He's just like, you know what? You know what I need? A robe change.
But another kind of important thing as well, because the Maiar were around at the creation of the world. It's the main reason that technically Gandalf knows everything that's going to happen ever, because he was there when the entire thing was written by the gods, so to speak.
Wait, what? Wait.
Hold on.
The entire world was written at the start of the world, so they know how it's going to end.
It was all laid out, but
They're like plans, like blueprints.
But all of the Maiar that go into physical form, so Gandalf, for example, when he is in the form of Gandalf, because they are effectively put into not mortal, but sort of put into a mortal form, so to speak.
Yeah.
They can't really have the same mental ability, capacity, memories, whatever, as their like spirity Maiar form.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a reason that during the course of the books, and even in The Hobbit, for example, there's a lot of times where Gandalf kind of has a hunch of what's going to happen, and it's kind of loosely implied at moments he has a bit of foresight and whatnot, but he doesn't really know because he's kind of remembering glimpses. But because he's in this like physical form, he doesn't have the full memory of that's going to happen, that's going to happen, that's going to happen. It's just
Is that
kind of
why I
glimpses
have
and
no
stuff.
memory of this place is a thing? It's alright, continue, don't worry about it.
Yes and no, I suppose.
It's literally just me. Like, the entire knowledge that I have of this is off, like, 2 half-washings and a bunch of memes. So that's why I kind of pull shit out of my butt, and then I'm like, oh, hello.
So that's what I was thinking, because if Gandalf knew, why would he have to go off for like 17 years and research the ring?
Yeah.
If he already knew. And
Exactly.
And-
so like he doesn't.
does that mean all the evil stuff was already written? So that when they made the world, they're like, we need evil shit to happen.
Sort of. It's. Once again, I'm going to deliberately avoid talking too much about that stuff because it gets complicated
Fair
and
enough.
into area that's a bit left field for this.
Okay.
Excellent.
Sorry, we'll stop pissing
So
you.
yeah, no, that's right. That's right. One day. But yeah, for now, like there will be a few other things as well. Where if you did other reading into particular parts, particularly in the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales and stuff, you'd go, hang on a minute, you didn't mention that thing. It's because there's a few very deliberate things I've left out just because they aren't necessarily important to the main discussion.
We'll
here.
leave it in mystery. Woo! Woohoo.
Anyway, so with that, we will go into the Second Age.
Ooh.
So in the Second Age, there is 2 main storylines. There are the elves, and there are the men, or the Númenóreans in this case.
Númenóreans, Jesus
Númenor.
Yes, Númenor. Matt, you may have heard the name before. Guy, probably not.
I have heard the name mostly through Lord of the Ring memes. Everyone's just like, bring back the Númenóreans, are the best. That's literally all I've heard.
Yep. Okay, well, you're going to learn a lot today then.
Yay!
So, the elves, it's the storyline's mainly around the elves who chose to stay behind in Middle-earth at the end of the First Age.
Okay.
Because you've got to bear in mind, which if you look to the maps that I showed you guys for the sake of making it a bit easier, on the bottom page, on page 3,
Yeah.
you can see this huge chunk of land that's like underwater.
Yeah.
Oh, wild.
Yep, that is all a continent known as Beleriand, and it's where the elves lived mostly, it's where Morgoth was, etc., and that all got sunk during the War of Wrath when the Valar destroyed Morgoth.
An angry war, maybe.
Is there a way?
Yeah.
Is there like for the listeners watching? Can they look? What's an easy thing they can look up for this map? Is there something they can look up?
Just Google Middle-earth map of Beleriand.
And it'll come up.
Yep, and you'll see a big old... Basically, all the images is just there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But can possibly, depending what mediums this is uploaded, put links somewhere in a thing.
I can hopefully put links. If there's no links, I'm sorry, guys. Just look it up.
Listen, we've got a big continent, half of it's underwater.
But that's pretty. It's a pretty good map. Yeah.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah.
I'm not being exact.
A lot of
It's
it
an
has
audio
been
medium.
sunk. A lot of it has been sunk.
Yep. Okay. Anyway. So the elves, they are the one. It's focused around the ones who stay behind in Middle Earth. In a few kingdoms, there's Imladris, Rivendell. You remember that one briefly?
Yeah, Rivendell.
A place called Eregion. and then later Lothlorien and Mirkwood.
Okay. Yeah. Know that one.
Then there's a few big characters which we'll get into in the Elven things, but then the second storyline is the Númenóreans. In short, Númenor is an island that was gifted to a race of men who helped fight with the Valar during the War of Wrath.
So they were humans, now they're Númenóreans, then they're back to being humans.
No, Númenóreans are men.
Right.
They're like it's like a country.
Just like,
it's like a country of people.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's like
excellent.
It's like having Australians, Americans, British,
Now, like Australians, are they more powerful?
They're just pretty cool. I think.
Númenóreans are actually very strong.
Excellent. Remarkable.
So because they chose to fight, because during the War of Wrath there was 3 groups of men. There was a group of men who said, yes, we'll fight with Morgoth.
Mm-hmm.
There's
The
a
bad
group
people.
of men who said, there's a group of men who said, no, screw you, Morgoth, we're going to do our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a group of men who said, no, screw you, Morgoth, we're going to fight for the Valar and fight you.
To be honest, I relate hard with the middle group.
Yeah. Well,
Why
that
would
is
you want
the
to get
group
involved in a
that-
fight of gods?
Well, that is the group who, like, Rohan, for example, their ancient ancestors, Dale, all those sorts of places all come from that group of
See,
men.
the people who survived. See, that's what you need. That is the group you want to be with.
Well, yes. Anyway, so we'll get more into the groups of men after. There's one other important thing to mention as well before I dive into the elves, which is probably my preferred side, but the Númenóreans is also very cool. So there's 2 very important characters, just in the way that I'm approaching this discussion. Elrond and his brother Elros.
Heard of Elrond? Heard of Elrond?
Yep, heard of Elrond. His brother Elros doesn't really get so much of a mention, which is a bit of a rip, but that's because he's not really around for as long as Elrond.
Is he dead?
What a shame.
Yes, because here's the thing with them, which doesn't really get brought up in the movies and even The Hobbit and stuff when you watch that, or read it, whatever. Elrond is technically half-elven.
Oh.
Wait,
when
really?
was this?
Yep.
What's his other half, though?
Probably like orc or
Man.
something.
Man.
Oh, okay, it's one.
Oh.
He's a half elf.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But the thing with the way that Tolkien half-elves work, they kind of, and it's the same reason why Arwen, when she, because it's like a whole big thing of she chooses to have a mortal life with Aragorn. When you're a half-elf, you have the choice of either being more elf or more man.
When is this choice presented to you?
Yeah, what age?
It's not particularly it's more just like a spiritual choice throughout their life, so to speak.
So
it's
sort of an
a bit
ongoing
grey area. It's a bit of a grey area. But the main
It's
two...
kind of like in real life. Like, what is your purpose in life? You don't just at one point get to define it. You have to like build it. As you go.
That was some real deep shit, Matt, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that was.
No problem.
Anyway.
That's been coming to you
but
from
with...
New Zealand. Deep shit.
Oh, God. Anyway. So Elrond and Elros, they are both half-elven. After the War of Wrath, which is the end of the First Age, they are both given the choice by the Valar of either joining the elves or becoming men. Elrond, of course, chose the path of the Eldar, because he's a character in all the later things. And Elros, however, chose to be a man, chose to go down that path. But they effectively made him into a man, quotation marks, because once again, this is a bit of a simplification of more complicated things to make it easy for you guys.
Shut up, guy.
And, so he
copyright.
chooses the path of man, but he's still blessed with long life and strength, so to speak.
Okay. So he's like a really
So-
cool man.
Think of someone else who is a man but also blessed with long life from the movies.
The Ranger.
Aragorn.
Yeah, I thought I just blanked on his name.
The only thing that came to me was...
Wow.
My brain was just going like, Gandalf. It's like, no, we've just been over this, brain. Get your head in the...
I'm gonna think of Ranger as they call him sometimes.
Yeah. Anyway, yep. So Aragorn is like a very, 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 very distant relative of Elros.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, look at that.
which obviously...
So he's dating back into his
Elros-
family if he's dating...
Yep.
Listen, everyone is after a certain
Oh,
point.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. How many centuries has it been?
But it's also... It's like weirdly close because Arwen is Elrond's daughter, so she's very close to Elros, but then Aragorn's very far from Elros. So
About how many centuries? Like, is it like 200 years or like 4,000?
Oh, this is like thousands of years.
Yeah, so I think
Okay.
that's genetically fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's not that bad. That's not that weird. It's
I
weird
was
for
trying to
It's weird
steer
for
it away
Elrond.
from the incest discussion.
It's weird for Elrond, but that's it.
Yep.
And
Also,
that's
Arwen
that's
being
his,
much.
and that's his choice. He chose to be an elf.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so the fuck.
What if there's a little bit
Anyway.
of elf-blooded in me, and if I
bloody
just
hell.
start thinking more elf, I'll just live longer.
What if everyone has that potential in them?
Everyone just gotta
yes.
think good. Think
Just
good
gotta think-
thoughts. Maybe that's
think
why
like
the,
an elf
the
and we'll
crystal
all be
people
elves.
always live longer and have better lives.
Yeah, they feel.
Thinking
they-
good thoughts.
Yeah, God.
Anyway. So I will jump into the elves, second age.
Okay.
Yes, excellent.
Love the elves.
Thing to know with the elves, they did it very hard during the first age.
By I mean,
They-
did it?
Hey, cease.
None of that.
What? I'm just
terms
what do you
of
mean? I'm just trying to get a
they
definition here. What does did it?
I'm trying to explain now.
Okay.
There was multiple kinslayings where elves fought elves. There were all the initial fights against Morgoth where the elves had to deal with the first of the dragons. There was the fall of Gondolin, which was one of their largest and most secreted away fortresses / homes, and then finally the War of Wrath, which resulted in the sinking of this huge chunk of land, which is obviously their home.
Are you going to tell
So
us how that
they-
happened, or is it
so
just going to get brushed over?
So poor elves got messed over. Poor elves. Okay,
Yeah.
but you did skip over one thing there that I do want to just slightly bring up. This dragon I hear. I've heard things about this dragon. Is this the 12-mile wide dragon?
This is Goldrond, yes.
Yes.
thick-
This
that's
is
a
this
thick
this,
dragon.
this is a dragon. Like, I just want to imagine a dragon that is 12 miles wingspan.
No, sorry, this isn't that dragon.
Oh, it's not that dragon.
Yeah, no, that,
Oh,
the
that-
first of the dragons doesn't have wings.
Okay. Sorry, this is
Yeah.
I don't
Anyway.
know the names of them, but I've heard of this
Yeah.
dragon, and it gets me really excited whenever I hear him because that just sounds bloody awesome.
I'm not asking
Yeah,
this as an
but the
active
elves-
question as well, just quickly. I'm not going to ask this as an active question. You don't need to answer now. I would like to know, are we ever going to find out how this continent sunk?
Not specifically. It's more just a thing that happened during the War of Wrath.
Hey, Jude. They don't... You know that they don't do that, right?
Hey,
Continents don't just do that.
Hey, guy.
When they have-
Do you know how it really happened? Do you want to know?
I know. I wanted
Glo-
to know whether
global-
or not I would find out.
Global warming happened.
Those
The
damn elves.
seas rised, and the war just created so much pollution in the atmosphere.
All right,
And-
continue. No, continue, Jude.
Anyway.
Jude, take the floor.
Anyway, so the elves, they had a pretty hard life during the first age, toward the end of it, and if you look at the maps, particularly the one that you were looking at before, if you scroll up to page 2, you see another map, which is just of Middle-earth itself.
Yep. So this is for the
And
listeners. It's just a map of Middle Earth.
Just a standard
Just
map
map of Middle-earth, yeah. I've got a little red circle around the westernmost mountain range.
Yep. Western Mountain Range.
That is the Blue
Northwest.
Mountains, also known as the Eredluin. Which one day there's dwarves that live there, then there's no dwarves, then there's dwarves again. It's a long story. But
Good job, dwarves.
before everything sunk, this was one of the big dividing points. Beyond that mountain range, you didn't really get high elves. You got some elves that chose to live in more exile than the other elves, and you also got men, for the most part, lived beyond the Blue Mountains.
Okay.
Beyond in which direction?
So east.
More east.
Okay, right.
So
the west.
all the elves and the people who thought good of themselves were west, and everyone else was east.
Yep.
So I see.
For the most part,
I see
yeah.
a pattern going in this world. East is bad, and west is good.
West
Yep.
is good, Unga Bunga.
No. Anyway,
yeah,
and then
okay.
you see the blue circle, which, if anyone looking at the actual map, is just the area of land just directly to the west of that mountain range. There's a little bit of peninsula and stuff. That is the main elf kingdom in Middle-earth called Lindon.
Ah, okay.
Which is a very important part during the Second Age, because it is, out of the entire chunk of land that sunk, that Lindon is the only part of the entire Elven kingdom that didn't sink, and instead of becoming like this back alley place which was super unimportant, it became the only bit of land they had left. So it became super important.
Like
I
and-
can see on the other map now.
That's
That
like-
makes a lot of sense.
that's like if the entirety of Australia except Tasmania sunk, we'd see Tasmania as pretty important.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
But anyway, so they lost all their lands apart from that one, and it became the first. That was the first act of the Second Age, where is marked like the first year of the Second Age, when Lindon, king called Gilgalad, who is a very, very cool elf character,
Gilgalad.
and he founded a place called the Grey Havens, which started the Second Age.
Oh, okay.
Grey Havens is
is it just how the historians of Middle Earth just say this is the start of the Second Age, or was there is that like a huge thing to start a new age? Like, is it like do they go now you started the new age? We did it, boys.
What's the indicator on these ages?
Is there a time, or is it just?
It is kind of a.
When do they define it?
What's the word? Historians decide thing.
Because I'm just wondering, because it just seems like there are ages in real life, but usually it's part of there's actually huge things in why they defined ages.
Usually it's a big technological jump or something like that.
Yeah. Which it is and it isn't, because it's the start of the Second Age, where the First Age was just so huge because it was where the elves were in huge dominion. It's where the Valar walked the main earth and everything. And then there was the War of Wrath, which ended everything. And they're like, this is a huge change. What do we do now? And they're like, it's the start of a new age. And then
fair
they
enough.
just the settling of the Grey Havens is just kind of this pinpointing moment.
Okay, cool.
So, thing to know here as well with the Grey Havens, is the place where all of the elves set sail from. So, at the very end of Lord of the Rings, when you see Frodo, Gandalf, and everyone, spoiler alert, sailing away, that is the Grey Havens.
Yeah. If you haven't watched the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit yet, what are you doing? Go watch them.
Don't bully me.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, guy. They have no right to be.
Stop bullying me!
You have no right to be complaining about spoilers. Go watch them. They're how many years old now? The books are very old. And the movies are old too, as well. So just go watch them.
Yeah.
They're good, and the extended editions. Go do it.
Yeah, only the extended editions actually.
Yeah.
Anyway.
After you finish this podcast.
Hey, listen. Have you watched Surf Nazis?
No.
Surf Nazis is a very old movie as well. Why haven't you watched that?
Okay.
I think there's
anyway,
slightly difference in importance.
I'm gonna.
Surf Nazis must die. 1987 film. 2 stars on Rotten Tomato.
I'm gonna continue now. So, Lindon, Grey Havens. Interesting thing here as well. The end of the First Age / start of the Second Age. A large number of elves departed Middle Earth because they kind of had the option of sailing home to the Undying Lands and living out eternity with the Valar.
I would too.
Cool. Yeah, that's
Because while the elves have a very huge lifespan, to say the least, they, especially once they've lived for a very, very, very long time, they start to fade. Which is a thing you hear briefly mentioned in the movies, like you hear about Arwen fading and stuff, but that's a little bit different because that's more to do with Sauron's presence. Won't get into that too much. But the main thing, when the elves get very, very old, they start to fade until eventually they basically just become a wraith.
Oh. That's
not good.
No, but wait, okay. So fading, what's the process look like? Is it like aging, or is it like turning transparent? Because currently that's what fading is in my head.
Yeah, same.
It's aging and then fading's the very last kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when they
anyway.
become a what is it, a phantom?
Wraith.
A wraith. Do they become bad at that point? Do they become evil? or can there be a
bit
good
up in the
race?
air. Once again, that's a little bit outside of this discussion for the
Fair
moment,
enough,
but that's
sorry.
just a
Okay.
thing to bear in mind.
Keep
That's right.
on track.
Yep. The elves, that's what happens to them, so
Yeah.
that's the main reason that they choose to depart the Undying Lands, because in the Undying Lands, they don't fade.
Yeah,
Well,
I
they
don't
do,
know.
but it's much, 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 much slower.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know
So they
why
can
you
live
wouldn't want to
for-
go to this heavenly land where you
you
get to
wanna
live
go to
with
this-
live with gods and just chill.
Do you
Well,
want to come to literal
is-
heaven?
Yeah.
I do have the answer why they chose to stay, a lot of them.
Uh-huh.
And it's actually comes from Tolkien I'm pretty sure it's in the letter that he wrote at the start of Silmarillion, that a large, not the only reason, but a large majority of elves that chose to stay in Middle-earth, a contributing factor to them wanting to stay is because they wanted to be these, like, very mighty, powerful figures surrounded by lesser beings,
I see.
whereas if you go back to Valar, you're at the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like
'cause
going...
you've got...
It's like if you want to stay in primary school in year 6 and be the top of the food chain, or do you want to go to high
Yeah.
school and now you're the year 7 and now you're the bottom of everything? I get that. I
Yeah,
get that.
sort of. Yeah. You go from being the big fish to the smallest fish in the ginormous pond.
So that means everyone who was left behind are kind of cunts or kind of assholes. Cause
Yeah, there are lots as well that chose to stay because that was the place for their people, and they had roles to do there. So, like Gilgalad, for example, it was his role because he's the High King of the Noldor Elves.
Yeah.
It was kind of his role to be there. As long as his people were there, he was always going to be there as their leader. But yeah, there's definitely a bit of and even then, like I say, it's a contributing factor. It's not the main reason the elves stayed, but it's
Okay,
I don't know,
fair.
a thing that Tolkien wrote, so I think it's interesting.
Okay.
So elves had Lindon, which is the High Elven Kingdom ruled by High King Gilgalad, which is a kingdom with naval strength, and it's a big strong point for the Noldoran elves, which you'll hear me say Noldoran at times. That's basically substitutable for High Elves, to simplify it for you guys.
Thank you for simplifying us. We need that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am a small child
Because
with a
there's
very
a
small
lot. There's a lot of different. You've got like Sindarin elves, Quenya elves. You've got Sindar elves rather. Sindarin's language. Sindar elves. You've got Noldoran elves. You've got all sorts. Simplifying it, I'm going to refer to High Elves and Wood Elves just to make it a bit easier for you to.
Thank you very much. I was already getting confused when you just
Man,
started
we're
mentioning
back in
them.
D&D terms. I feel like,
Yeah.
I was falling. I'm safe.
You've caught me.
Curdled
Good,
in
good.
the warm arms of D&D.
Okay. So, you've got Lindon, which is a High Elven kingdom, ruled by Gilgalad.
Yeah.
Then, around the 750th year of the Second Age,
Yep.
you have a new kingdom founded, which is called Eregion. And that is ruled by Galadriel and Celeborn, who you
Good
may
movies.
remember from Fellowship of the Ring.
Who's Kel what?
Celeborn.
Who's
Yeah,
he?
who's Celeborn again?
He is Galadriel's husband, and in the Fellowship of the Ring, he's the Lord of Lothlorien.
Oh, gotcha.
So the kind of
Oh,
the blonde-haired
yeah.
rogue
Actually,
dude.
no, I
Oh.
had no idea.
Galadriel.
I'm joking, but that's okay.
He's
That's right,
He's
yeah.
the
It's
kind
It's
of
going to take way too long to
Wait,
explain to me.
he's the guy in the Hobbits, right? Is it the guy in the Hobbit movies?
No, he's
Not
not
that
in The
guy.
Hobbit.
Okay.
No.
I think I have an image in my head, but I don't know if it's right. I know Galadriel though. I know who that is.
Yeah. It's her husband who you see in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Anyway, so Galadriel and Celeborn, they ruled Eregion originally, which if you have a look at that map again, it is the green circle. That's roughly where Eregion is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was
I'm looking
a
at it now.
huge elven kingdom. Very, very prosperous in its time. Anyone that's looking at a map, you can see the Misty Mountains down the middle, and then you've got Lorien just to the east of the mountains, and then pretty much directly west on the other side of the mountains is where Eregion was.
Pretty much center above Rohan.
Yeah. Oh, kind of a bit northwest. But anyway, so
Yeah.
people of Eregion were also very famous for a interesting thing, that they had very strong relationship with the dwarves.
Nice.
Which is very rare for elves, especially Middle-earth elves.
Yeah.
And it's particularly the dwarves of Moria.
I know those
The mines of Moria.
Yeah, this is before it gets sacked and then repopulated and then sacked again.
Excellent.
Poor Moria.
Damn
Yeah,
Moria.
they do it stuff. But anyway, so this is when Moria is still a relatively not new, but like, nah, I'm not even gonna say comparative. It's super not new, but it's just starting to prosper a lot because, as I mentioned before, the Blue Mountains or the Eredluin,
Yeah.
there were a lot of dwarves that lived there, but then a lot of them went from there to Moria near the start of the Second Age.
Yeah.
For sure.
So they haven't done
Because
they haven't
Moria
dug too
was-
deep yet.
No, they haven't.
They have not dug too deep yet.
And anyway, so you've got Moria, and the elves of Eregion became very close friends of them. They had very open trading, which was prosperous for both of them because they have very good resources for each of them.
Good.
But around the year 1350 of the Second Age, Galadriel and Celeborn left Eregion, which, once again, simplifying this process to an ancient Wood Elf kingdom, which would eventually become Lothlorien.
Okay.
Okay.
And Celeborn and Galadriel would not take over rule there, but eventually, like more into Third Age, they become the rulers of Lothlorien, which is what you know them as in the movies.
Yeah.
And then the elf that takes over Eregion is Celebrimbor.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So,
I love that you keep pausing as if I'm gonna say, yeah, I know who that is.
yeah.
Well, there's a slight chance because
he's
he's
the
a
guy
character
he's-
in Shadow of Mordor.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah. That's where I know, because I was literally just playing Shadow of Mordor.
I do have that game as well. Just didn't pay attention. Just assumed he was Ghost Boy.
That's right.
Ghost Boy is
Yeah,
cool.
he is a ghost. Yeah, he is a ghost elf in Shadow of Mordor.
Yes, he is the ghost elf.
Yeah.
I'm only
Anyway.
20% into the game, so I'm not very far. But yes.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so Celebrimbor, he prospered for a time, but then someone disguised, which is a Maya, but he doesn't. All he knows this individual as is Anatar, the giver of gifts.
Oh, good.
Comes
like
to
a
the elves. Yeah, and comes to the elves. Seems like a very charming individual that basically becomes quite friendly of all the elves and seduces them to his will.
I don't trust him. Don't trust him at all.
Yeah, you definitely shouldn't.
Oh, no, I didn't
then
trust
so
him,
much
just that
so.
They sounded nice.
Yeah. Well, he's quite a charming person.
It's like
and-
Bumbo, the totally innocent, not child-killing clown. It's like, oh, he sounds nice. I don't trust him.
So much so that ultimately the elves of Eregion made the Rings of Power, guided by Anatar, who of course was Sauron in disguise.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
Because if you remember, Sauron being a Maya can take any physical form he wants.
of
He's not
course he
limited to one physical form.
God damn the Maya.
I feel like a... Damn the Maya. I feel like a guard in D&D who's like, oh, shit, of course disguise self exists. Like, doy.
It's like, this is a world of magic. Damn, why would we trust
Damn.
anyone? Why would you trust
Why would-
anyone? Ever.
Ever.
Anyone, your wife could be a Maya in disguise at any time.
Your wife is Sauron. Your mother is Sauron. Your son is Sauron.
Never
Everybody's Sauron.
Never trust anyone again.
Anyway,
Just
quick
go
thing
live on an
with
island
Sauron
where
as
you
well.
live forever, and it's very chill.
God.
That's what they should have done. Yes.
What? Anyway, the thing with him, Sauron, he was one of the main lieutenants of Morgoth, but he managed to survive the First Age and went into hiding.
Hiding.
So he's very much just Morgoth's bitch.
Where do you
underneath
hide
him.
from gods?
Far, 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 far east in shadows.
East.
Just east.
Yes, east.
East.
Anyway,
That nasty direction.
then so Sauron is effectively in Eregion, and he seduces the elves to make these rings of power.
Yep.
Because it's his. Well, yeah, ultimately it's his plan to take out the elves because they're the ones he ultimately wants to destroy. And his way of doing this is to make these rings, and then during the process of making them, he corrupts them to the point that when someone wears them, they do give them a lot of power, but they also make them easily corruptible to Sauron when he has the One Ring, which of course he makes in secret.
Corrupts the mind of the user.
Yes, but a thing that's worth noting here, a lot of elves kind of knew there was something off about Anatar.
They're like, nah, this guy's not.
Yeah. So, such as Galadriel mainly, and even Gil-galad, had a big distrust of Anatar, which is the main reason that it was in Eregion, where he made the rings, not anywhere else, because it was the only place where he could really get in.
Okay.
And because of that, when the 3 rings that were made of the elves, they were able to be secreted away, so Sauron was never able to corrupt them.
Yeah. Isn't that fire, water, and air, or something like that?
What?
Yep.
Yeah. So they've got different powers.
Excellent.
Which I'm really disappointed. Do we ever get to see these rings used ever?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Hey, Jude,
Because the main...
you can't give an answer like that.
I'm about to explain. The main thing that the rings do, the rings of power that the elves have, because they're the only ones that don't get corrupted by Sauron, is that they... You know how I mentioned before how the elves fade eventually?
Yeah.
The rings of power basically protect them against this for a huge extra period of time.
That's
so in the
pretty
same
good.
way that when Bilbo has the ring, his life expectancy goes hugely beyond what it's meant to be.
Okay, alright.
It's my 111th birthday.
Exactly. So
How long
that's why figures
How long are hobbits supposed to live?
towards 80, 90, 100 kind of area.
Shit. Good on you, Bilbo.
Yeah, they're not.
And he's still walking around.
Anyway. So with the rings, they expend that. Because that's how Galadriel, who wields a ring, and Elrond, who has a ring, are able to be still youthful elf in the Third Age, despite the fact they've been alive for thousands of years.
That makes sense.
Yep. Do we ever see an
But
old
the other
elf?
thing, yes,
Nice.
Where?
you see him. There's one particularly old elf known as Círdan. And he's one of Gil-galad's main lieutenants, and he's the one that watches over the Grey Havens and the one that makes all the ships that sail to the Undying Lands. You see him at the very end of the movies, and he's a very, very old boy.
Excellent.
Gotta love that boy.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's the 3 rings of the elves, which get secreted away. They give one to Galadriel, one to Gil-galad, and one to Círdan, who I just mentioned before.
Yeah. So
And
Celebrimbor didn't get
then-
one.
No,
Even though he
didn't,
made them.
because no, he did not. Because while Eregion was its own realm ruled by Galadriel then Celebrimbor, it was ultimately underneath Gil-galad. It was it was ruled by him as the High King because it's a High Elven area.
Shame.
Yep. And then also worth noting, Galadriel and Celeborn, when they go to Lothlorien, they are the High Elves there, but the rest of them are effectively Wood Elves.
Okay. So they're better than everyone else.
No, they're just closer to the Valar.
Okay. Fair enough.
Anyway, because Legolas is also a Wood Elf, and he's pretty hags, so...
Yeah, that stuff when he what is it? He walks on air in the Hobbit movie.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
Okay. So, other thing that's real cool with the Elven Rings, they are kind of the reason that a lot of the Elven strongholds are so strong and untouchable for Sauron's forces. So, Lothlorien, for example, the reason it lasts so long and is protected, because in the War of the Ring it gets attacked by shitloads of orcs and stuff.
Yeah.
But the reason it survives is because Galadriel's power of the ring protects it.
Oh, okay.
Does it hide it, or is it just they can't go there?
It basically, you know how when they're approaching, you'll know this more than Guy, Matt. When they're approaching, they say that it's like an enchanted forest, and there's an evil sorceress that lives in it. Yeah, that's Galadriel. The reason it is an enchanted forest is because of the ring.
Oh, okay. So it's not actually normally enchanted.
No, it's become yes, to a very small extent because elves and shenanigans, but the main reason it becomes such a powerfully enchanted area is because of the power of the ring that Galadriel has.
Okay. Question. Just a brief question about the magic of Lord of the Rings. So do you have to have been given magic or be born with magic, or can any human or elf just pick up magic?
That's a bit of a grey area. It's a very, very, very soft magic system.
Okay, fair enough. So it's just like whatever they want at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, to an extent, but you do have to be a powerful being to some extent to have the access to a magic, if that makes sense.
Fair enough, yeah.
Because it's very much... Magic isn't so much a thing that someone uses, and so much like... just energy in an area, I guess. Like, obviously Gandalf, because even Gandalf, like, he doesn't actually do that much with magic. It's just occasionally he can do a thing with magic, you know? Rather than, like, oh, I'm a wizard, I cast spells, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, so, continuing on with Eregion. As you know very well from the start of Lord of the Rings, Sauron the Deceiver created in secret his own Ring of Power, which is one that he poured a lot of his power into as a Maya.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is part of the reason that the ring is so powerful, because he's a Maya, angel, whatever, and he's poured his own power into it.
Mm-hmm.
So the ultimate scheme of Sauron failed because the elves got away before he could corrupt their rings, and the whole point was to destroy the elves. It did inadvertently give Sauron a massive boost because the creation of the One Ring basically made him incredibly more powerful, like in body and spirit. He became very, very much stronger than he would have been before.
How did it become more powerful when he used his power to... How does he become more powerful?
He used his power to create an artifact that magnifies power.
Oh, I see. Okay. It's like shaping power
yeah.
into a different way to make it more powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
I assume that also has some bad effects.
Yep, because if he were to ever be separated from the ring, he would be in trouble. Hint, hint.
Oh, yep, I'm with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's because it's in the same way that the reason that Gandalf's so scared of the ring is because A, it corrupts, and also because it magnifies power. So if Gandalf had it, he would be insanely powerful, but he'd also get evil real quick.
Yep, that's why he doesn't pick it up.
Whereas someone like the Hobbits, they just kind of go invisible because that's one of the powers that the ring can do, but they aren't really powerful enough to access the other stuff that it can do.
Yeah.
And also because it magnifies their power, but in the grand scheme of things, hobbits, men, even some basic elves don't really have the power that's needed to be magnified, if that makes sense.
It's like instead of timesing a big number, you times by a small, very small number. It doesn't do the same effect.
Yeah, exactly. But what is worth noting, the dwarf lords who were given rings, their rings were corrupted. And while at first the dwarf lords were very resilient to Sauron's will, and it was like, oh, cool, their rings are fine, it did end up leading to their downfall, because notably all of the dwarven lords that had a ring begun to become obsessed with gold and treasure, which of course would lead to their downfall in a variety of places.
So they were resilient, but were eventually corrupted by like greed.
Yep. Yeah, it was, they were believed to be resilient, but it's also one of those things where, again, not written, just kind of speculated from various people that, oh, maybe they never were resilient, maybe this is what it was meant to do.
Yeah.
Whereas then, of course, the 9 men, they were not so resilient, and the humans proved to be most susceptible to the, of all the children of Ilúvatar, or Eru, the humans were the most susceptible to the power of the rings, and first it made them into sorcerers before they slowly became the wraiths that we know from the movies.
The ring wraiths.
Yep, the ring wraiths, Nazgul. But stepping back to Eregion, so Celebrimbor makes the rings, they find out that Sauron deceived them, they manage to secret away the 3 elven rings before they can get too bad, etc. But then Sauron and his armies of orcs and trolls and other dark creatures laid waste to the lands of Eregion, and Celebrimbor perished in the fighting. So he's gone, he dies. You know him in Shadow of Mordor as Spirit Boy, because, go figure, he died fighting Sauron there. And then the lands of Eregion were fought for, so Gil-galad, while he was gathering his army, because he saw there was about to be a big war against Sauron, he sends Elrond at the head of a mighty host to help. But in the grand scheme of things, they don't actually manage to do too much against Sauron's army because it's that massive. But what they do manage to do with Elrond is save a lot of survivors from Eregion. And then they take those survivors to a place and establish a settlement, and that settlement is Imladris, or Rivendell.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So Rivendell's
that's how-
like a refuge.
Yep, last homely house.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, because it originally was, before it became the place where Elrond, as kind of the last relatively noble elf in the majority of Middle-earth, well, one of the last, before it became the place of him living there, he settled it as a refuge for the survivors of Eregion. And then, of course, Rivendell became under siege from the Orcs, while the Orcs also, because if you look at the good old map, in Eregion's little circle there, that also more or less encompasses the area that Rivendell is.
Where's this on the map, sorry?
The green one?
The green circle, yeah.
Just kind of central.
Yeah, the green circle.
Yeah. Towards the top of that, close to where Rivendell is approximately.
Oh, okay.
So that's where Elrond was basically trapped because he was under siege. Meanwhile, the rest of Sauron's army went across to the west to start attacking Lindon.
Yeah.
And as they went, they were just burning all the forests and everything they could because they were trying to make all the elves come out of hiding and not have anywhere left to go.
Not great guys. Not great guys.
No, not at all. So they go across to start attacking Lindon. And... just let me catch up there. Yes. Worth noting as well in Eregion, because you remember how I said the dwarves of Moria were very good friends with the elves there?
Yeah.
The dwarves actually fought in huge numbers alongside the elves in defense of Eregion, but they ultimately got pushed back into Moria and the gates were forced shut, and they pretty much remained shut for the rest of this war because they just couldn't get out.
Fair enough.
Too dangerous.
So, yeah, pretty much they were just kind of trapped in there, because Sauron, as much as him and his army is pretty freaking cool, they can't break into a mountain.
Yeah.
especially when
try.
when like Sauron himself is busy trying to deal with the very powerful elves, so he just basically, all his orcs and trolls, they can't really break into the mountain. So yeah, but they were trapped inside there and couldn't really do too much more in the war. But anyway, so Elrond's in Rivendell, and then back in Lindon, where Elrond was trying to get back to, there was a defense being led by Gil-galad, as Sauron's armies were getting closer and closer.
Who's
And
Gil-galad
mighty
again,
is the
sorry?
elves.
Grey Havens.
Gil-galad, he's the king of the elves.
Ah, yeah.
The main, like, high king of the high elves.
Yeah.
So, mighty as the elves were, they were losing because Sauron's numbers were just too big. That was until a mighty armada arrived in the Grey Havens from a faraway island filled with some of the most powerful fighters in Middle-earth's history.
Numenor.
Numenor.
Yay,
yes.
the men.
Yes.
Not
yes.
just the men, but the women and children too.
The boys are here.
Not quite. So, we'll get more into Numenor in a sec. But Numenor, very, very powerful, huge army. And they had such a large and powerful enough army, they were able to deploy 2 full-size armies in Lindon to reinforce the elves. And then they deployed another equally huge army behind Sauron back in the east. And then they basically caught his army between 2 forces.
Big
And,
pincer.
yeah,
Damn.
Yep. And yeah, Sauron was pretty scared of Numenor at this point and swore revenge against them because he's like, oh shit, these guys are actually really tough. Huh. Especially as, for the most part, the men he had been dealing with were the more or less pathetic men that lived in, like, the east and some other parts of Middle-earth, which he was pretty easily able to corrupt. And then he had Numenor, which, no, they're very tough.
Yes.
So that's to wrap up with the Numenorians coming over and helping out, and then becoming very good friends with the elves. They were already pretty good friends because they fought with the elves in the First Age, but after this point especially, they became very good friends.
Yeah.
For
It's been
obvious
like,
reasons.
2,000 years?
Yeah, it's been a long
let's
time
be
at this point.
friends.
Yeah.
But
Elves, that's not
so
nothing for a minute. That's like quite a few lifetimes.
well, yeah, Numenorians, it's like 20 lifetimes or so because they live for quite a long time.
Oh, okay, fair.
Really? There you go.
Yeah, which I'll get into in a few seconds when we start Numenor. But to wrap up, because this is the kind of the end of the first main story point of the Second Age, the War of the Elves and Sauron, which is where the rings get made, etc. So to wrap up, that's kind of the main stuff that happens with the elves in the Second Age. Of course, there's loads of stuff and small stories in there, but as a broad overview, this is them, right up until the end of the Second Age, which is the last alliance of elves and men, which Matt would know a little bit about, but Guy not so much.
Yes, no.
A little.
Yep. So anyway, that is, Guy, for your sake, it's the scene at the very start of Lord of the Rings when they talk about resisting Sauron and stuff.
Okay.
He has seen that scene.
Anyway,
that's good.
So,
He has seen that scene.
Yeah, exactly. That particular scene, yes. So, Numenor, probably the biggest / main thing of the Second Age, because it's very, what's the word? It's something that only happens in the Second Age, whereas all the other things, they also exist in other ages. Numenor is just Second Age. And there is a lot of history here, including, 25 very fleshed out, very interesting different kings. Which I'm not going to get into all of them because it's way too detailed to do that. So for the sake of this, I will focus on I'll focus on 2 main kings, and as well as a third one who is the first king, or you already mentioned were introduced to him, Elrond's brother.
Hey, he's
Yeah,
back.
so he's the king of the Numenor.
Yep, he's the first king of Numenor
That
because he
gnome
becomes a
half-elf.
man.
Yeah.
Yep. But he's half elf, but he chose the man side rather than the elf side.
Man half elf.
Yeah.
Yep. So to be once again to super simplify things, you're gonna get a bit of a oh yeah, actually I already mentioned that's right. How there was the 3 groups of men, some that fought Morgoth, some that fought for Morgoth, and then ones that just didn't fight.
Yeah.
The correct group.
So
These guys are the
yes,
good boys who fought and won.
yeah. So because of that, so Elros became the first king of Numenor. And as mentioned before, he was blessed with long life compared to regular humans.
Fair enough.
And
thing for a
as
king.
were the rest of the Numenorians, because they fought for the Valar, they were rewarded with strength, longer lives, and the island of Numenor, which was a very pretty, wondrous place. And the Valar did their part, each of them, in shaping it. So they literally raised it from the ocean and then built it for them, basically.
Oh, wonderful.
That's a pretty good bonus at the end of a quest.
It's a pretty good reward for
You're
a
like,
quest. Hey, you fought this huge war for us.
Hey, this
That's,
is like a level 20 quest, though.
You fought this war for us, so you get an entire island built by the gods for you.
This is some end of campaign shit,
super
though.
powers. You also get superpowers.
Okay, yeah, but once you've got your own island and superpowers, you kind of become the side character, and a new band of adventurers arrives.
Yeah, because
Yes, of course.
they're a bit OP at this point, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I keep
anyway.
going back to D&D, but it's literally my only way to frame most of this shit, just because it's so familiar
Yeah.
to me compared
Well-
to this world.
Well, I guess it
Fair.
is probably like one of the most similar because I guess D&D was based off stuff like this.
D&D super duper
Yeah,
was
yeah, it
based
was.
off this.
Yeah. So this kind
Anyway,
of get it.
so yes, so you had the Numenor, the men of Numenor, and the island was raised from the waves, which is also why if you look at the map, the first one, you can see the island of Numenor.
So brief question.
It's kind of loosely shaped like a star because the gods raised it.
Yeah,
Because they're just cool like that.
So
Yeah,
brief
pretty much.
question. They raised this island. Why didn't they re-raise the elves' land from the ocean?
Well, one of the main reasons they wanted part of that to be destroyed because they wanted the Undying Lands to be separated completely from the other lands. And before it all got submerged, there was a land bridge going between the two,
Oh,
which you can see on the second map that's there, which is just a map of the
yeah, you can
world
see.
of Arda.
You can see that bridge.
Yeah. They wanted that gone, and also, basically because, as far as I'm aware, it would just be too much for them to do. I think.
So these are lazy gods.
They like doing little
No, they're
creative
just
projects.
limited. They're limited power. Anyway,
Fair
So-
enough. No, fair enough.
even from the west, some of the elves that live over there came over and beautified the island a bit. Just brought some of their stuff over.
Excellent.
Which once again I'm simplifying a few things there, but that's okay. The only condition of their reward, the humans that lived on Numenor, they were to worship the Valar,
It's pretty fair.
and they were to never ever sail west or set foot on the Undying Lands.
Don't go west.
That was the-
Don't go west.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
yeah, pretty simple. They can go as far east as they want and explore all of Middle-earth, do whatever they want. They've got huge lives. They're really strong, really prosperous people.
Just
but do
never
not go
come
west.
over. Never come to my house.
Yep.
Don't disturb me.
Yeah.
Don't touch.
Well, yeah.
Giving you this island. Never come back.
Do not disturb on the door handle.
It was because it was a thing where only the elves go to the Undying Lands.
Yeah.
It was never a place meant for hobbits, for men, anything like that.
So little bit
they
of,
said
bit of, is it racist, or is it just like, no, you don't deserve to come here?
it's very purist, maybe not quite racist, but
purist.
Very
You're not
purist,
good
yeah.
enough. You like
I mean,
you
it's
fought
not,
with us.
It's not racist
but you're not
in a
really good
negative
enough.
way. It's because in this universe, it's not like races in like same people, different color.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
literally a
literally-
different species.
That is true. That
It's
is
like
true.
a human being offended that they can't stay in a dog hotel. Like, it's not
That
meant
is
for you,
fair.
my man. It's
That's
not
fair.
meant for you.
It's like it's like you're not supposed to come here. This is not for you.
Please get out of the kennel, my man.
Anyway, so thing with Elros as well, because as I mentioned, he got him and everyone in his bloodline got a particularly long life as well,
Yeah.
even just compared to the average Numenorian, because
They got
Numenorians
bonus.
could live for like quite a long time, like well over 100 years and
Oh,
stuff.
excellent.
But Elros, he actually lived until he was about 500.
Oh, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good bonus.
And even then, when he became 500, he chose to die,
Yeah, I'm
because
done.
he thought it was
Yeah, I've
he
been here long
decided
enough.
it was he decided it was time for his son to take over as king of Numenor. So he was like, I'm going to choose to die now.
Fair
Good.
enough.
So it does raise the question of how long could he have actually lived for, but whatever.
Yeah, fair. He's just like, no, I'm peace
yeah.
out.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, then there's the other king we'll talk about is the 11th king from memory. I should go off the top of my head there. But anyway,
Sure it's
his
right.
name is probably maybe his name is Tar Minister.
Tar Minister.
Tar Minister.
Yep. He's a minister.
And he is anyway. He is a mighty king of Numenor, and he is the one that answered to Gil-galad's call for aid and sent the huge army to Middle-earth to help fight Sauron.
Nice boy. Nice boy.
Yeah. And he was, after that, because just before this whole time period, Numenor had begun settling in other places briefly, so like along Middle-earth, they'd made a couple settlements.
We got bored of this island that the gods made for us, so we're going to start spreading out and franchising.
To be fair, they've been there for
Little bit.
2,000 years. Like, come on, they got to spread out a little
It's
bit.
an
Spread their
island
wings.
made by the gods, shaped like a star. Why?
Yeah, it gets boring,
I mean, Britain.
Well, it's more they just wanted
Yeah.
to build their power, Anyway.
It's Britain.
and,
They're building
so-
their empire.
So anyway, one of these places is Pelagi, which is a place in Gondor. Even in the Third Age, it's still around. And it's one of the places where Aragorn goes to when he's sailing on the Corsair ships heading towards the Pelennor Fields.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, that is a relatively important place in the Third Age, and it was settled by the Numenorians ages ago.
Okay.
So, as well as that, and it's because they had this settlement on the coast of Gondor, is how they were able to get that third army to the east, if you remember from when they attacked Sauron.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so
So
then
Gondor was
after-
them?
Yes,
They made
Gondor was
Gondor.
created by Numenor.
Okay, cool.
We're getting to that. That's after some other big shit.
Fun.
So, thing with Tar-Ministar as well. He, after helping the elves, he lived out the rest of his days wanting to make more Numenor settlements around. He made other places on the mainland, including a place called Umbar,
Umber.
which is where Corsairs come from later on in time.
Okay.
Are they just more humans?
Yes, more humans.
Excellent.
Okay.
But the Corsairs in particular are servants of Sauron, and they are evil men in the future.
So are those the one with the ships
Yep.
in The Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
So there's one. Okay. So Numenors became evil.
Yes.
Oh.
Interesting. These good
We're getting-
boys became evil and helped Sauron.
We're getting to that. So, Anyway, so after that, he made loads more settlements, including Umber, until he abdicated in 1869 of the Second Age, and then he peacefully died 4 years later.
Okay.
So he was, happy king, went and helped out Middle-earth, saved them, sent an army to help out Middle-earth, saved them, kept relations strong with the elves, etc. Then we get to the next king I'm going to talk about, which is the final king of Númenor.
Oh, no.
What happened?
He must have fucked it up.
And his name is Tar-Calion, also known as Ar-Pharazôn.
Why?
Because as the Númenorians got further in, because this guy is the 25th king, as they progressed, they started to get further away from the elves, and as they did that, some of them even decided they didn't want to speak the elven languages at all. So that's why he had two names. He had a name that was his really proper name, and then he had his other name where he was like, nah, I don't want to have an elven name, screw you. So that's why he goes down known as Ar-Pharazôn.
He turned away from the gods.
So anyway. But I prefer the name Tar-Calion because that's what Tolkien refers to him as in some of his original letters and stuff, so that's the one I'm going with.
We'll call him Tar.
But he's also known as the Golden.
Ooh, Golden Boy.
Yes. In a lot of ways, he was one of the mightier kings of Númenor, and he made the two biggest armies on two separate occasions. So first thing that happened after he descended to the throne, because cool thing about Númenor, thing I find cool, they, instead of having a crown, they had a scepter that they passed on from king to king.
Huh.
So instead of taking the crown, it was taking the scepter.
Yeah.
And the other thing with Númenor as well, which is a little bit different in other kingdoms of Arda and whatnot, they had queens, so it would just the the monarchy would pass down to the oldest child, whether it was a daughter or son.
So they're for equality.
Yeah,
They better be.
But none of the queens are really that are important enough to be mentioned today.
No, they definitely are, and I'm a little annoyed I can't mention some of them, but these ones are just the two most pivotal in the grand scheme of Númenor in the Second Age. Anyway, so Tar-Calion, after he took the scepter, he heard Sauron, who had by this point regained strength in Middle-earth in the east.
Damn it.
Because by this point he has Mordor pretty well established.
Is this the second time?
The second time, yeah.
So okay, let me just get straight. So the first time he was like, I'm going to win, and then the Númenors came and they crushed them basically, and Sauron got away again.
Yeah, well, because the thing you got to bear in mind, because he's a Maya, they can't actually kill him.
Yeah. So he went back into hiding.
So even if they completely destroy his body, which from memory he actually managed to escape to Mordor anyway, but even if they had managed to destroy his body, his spirit would have just been momentarily dispersed and then recovered itself.
And at this
because this is
at this point he has the One Ring as well, right?
Yeah, he had the One Ring during the First War as well.
And also at this point, are we still flat earthing?
Yes.
And one more thing. So how many years between the First War and now the Second is coming?
I have to double check my notes for that one because I have after this I'm gonna get to a more proper timeline. So I'll get to that in a sec.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Because I'm literally just from the appendices at the back of Return of the King has just got an amazing timeline of the Second Age. I was like, I may as well use it. Anyway. So, he heard Sauron, who had regained strength in Mordor. And remember how Sauron had sworn that he was going to get revenge against Númenor?
Of course he does.
So, Sauron proclaimed that he was the King of Kings and Lord of all men.
I think that's true. That's fair.
And then Tar-Calion, who was a pretty proud king and had done some pretty good things, like he was called the Golden, he heard Sauron saying that and was like, you know what happened last time you stood up? We knocked you the fuck down.
Get him.
So he made a huge, the largest army that had ever been seen in the Second Age, sailed across, and they were going to go completely destroy Sauron.
Bop this kid.
But Sauron's servants, they simply would not fight the Númenorians. They basically just surrendered.
Hey, boss.
And then Sauron's
could
gone.
We not? Boss, could we not fight the invincible superhumans?
Let's not do that.
So Sauron, who
Wait.
like, he built a huge army. He was preparing. He wanted to lure Numenor over and then crush Numenor on Middle Earth rather than sailing over to their island.
Yeah.
They came over. He saw how big their army was. Went, oh shit! And then his own army just surrendered.
So okay, can I put something in my mind? I just had an imagery when you said Superman. I just imagining them as they're all Captain America. Every one of the Numenors is Captain America.
To be honest,
they're all Captain Americas
There
coming
is-
over. I could do this. I could do this all day.
The Numenor, they are pretty strong. Like honestly, it's not a bad thing. Anyway,
Before
so,
we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Jesus Christ.
So anyway, so they went over. Sauron basically had to surrender because his entire army just said, "Nope,
Smart
we're not
man.
fighting them."
Yes, smart man.
And he paid homage to Tarkalion because he came forward, because obviously he can change his physical appearance. He came forward as appearing as a relatively charming man.
Of course.
And the Númenóreans were actually surprised at what Sauron looked like because they hadn't really seen him before. Then they see this dude come out and they're like, "Oh, we weren't expecting this." And then he was all humble.
He can shapeshift.
Like bent the knee to Tarkalion, said, "You are clearly the more proper king," and like completely, sucked up to him. So
Damn it.
Tarkalion brought Sauron as a prisoner back to Númenor.
Oh
Because
no!
he liked him.
Why would you? Why would
No,
you do that?
he brought him.
flattered by Sauron just
being
being
so
so nice.
He brought him back as a prisoner to keep like in the prison cells and stuff. But over a very long time, you've got to bear in mind that Sauron spent years seducing and influencing elves who are vastly stronger-willed to men in the grand scale of things. So, mighty as the Númenóreans were, Sauron swiftly rose from prisoner to servant to chief counselor to the king.
Oh, for
Oh
fuck's
my
sake.
god. And they didn't look back at the fact that they were like, "Oh wait, he's a prisoner."
How long did that take? Approximately 2 years?
Oh,
or
like
20?
a long time. Like,
Another
more
thing.
like 20. I don't have that exactly written down.
Using the term seducing, do you mean sort of subtly bribing in a way?
No, actually.
Like just
He
being
offered
a
them-
nice guy and offering them advice and shit like that. I guess.
Yeah. Mainly just advice, because being a mayor, he did actually know a lot of things.
Yeah, he's been
And
around
he did have
for
a
the
lot
beginning
of
of
So they
power.
were like, he was like, "Hey, you should do this thing," and they're like, "No, fuck you." And then they went off, and what he said was right. And so eventually they were like, "Oh, wait."
He gained his trust with small victories, and eventually he's going to break them down.
So once again, this is a huge time period.
Oh, yeah.
Like a really, the next part, especially that I'm going to simplify, is a very, very long time period. But Sauron, in his new position, ultimately succeeded in corrupting the belief of the king and the vast majority of Númenor that the Valar were actually the evil ones.
No.
And that the real god, the proper good god, was Morgoth, and that he'd been sealed away by the Valar.
So wait, okay. So which king are we at this point?
This is still Tarkalion.
So still Tarkalion. So it's still under like
'cause
200. He lives for a while.
He lives for like, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's around like beyond 300 years because
Okay.
he's of the line of Elros, so he has a very long life.
So it took them. He took him about like 100 years. But like the king is the one who like arrested Sauron. He should remember how bad he was, and he's still.
You got to bear in mind as well, though. It was also Sauron tapping into the fact that the Númenóreans as a whole were starting to dislike the elves anyway, just because of the way they were going.
So there
Because,
was-
like, remember how I mentioned, there was a
Yeah.
point when the Númenóreans decided they wanted to stop using elven languages.
Yeah.
The Númenórean kings started not taking elven names, but taking common language names instead.
So the ball was already
etc.
rolling, but Sauron just gave it a big
And then
push.
Sauron came along and was like, I can use this situation to my advantage.
So
We get down on Sauron for
kick
doing.
that ball.
We get down on Sauron for just kind of seeing an army and just noping out. But smart man, smart guy. Well, smart.
Oh yeah.
Hang on, let me check my notes.
You
Smart.
can't.
Valor.
No, he wasn't a Valar. He was a Maya.
He was a Maya.
Maya. Yeah, smart Maya.
Which is Maiar.
I've just got it as Miar, and that works for me.
That's right. So anyway, he corrupted them into believing that Morgoth was the one that needed to be worshipped.
Excellent.
And on the island of Númenor, Sauron oversaw the construction of a massive temple dedicated to Morgoth.
Oh no, and the islands.
Which was
I can see bad.
to the to the Valar, they were like, hold the fuck up.
Yeah.
Not good. And the other thing that he also convinced eventually, because this is, he spends a long time making them believe in Morgoth, and the men of Numenor, who were once so righteous and amazing and tough, they just started to become these horrible, greedy, vile people.
Corruption.
Like, living in the main cities of Numenor would just be horrific. Like, people just so selfish, killing each other over stupid things, etc.
God,
no.
damn humans.
Yeah, pretty much. Especially as they are also so strong, so if they decide they want to screw someone over because that person screwed them over, it gets pretty messy pretty quick. Anyway, so he continued advising, like whispering in the ear of Tarkalion, until the twilight of his life, at which point Tarkalion started to be afraid of the fact that he was going to die soon. Because he was like, oh crap, I'm doing all these things, I've got this awesome advisor and everything, so he started to become afraid of the fact that he was going to die. Which Sauron
is bad.
Took advantage of, and was like, hey, you know how the elves live forever? Well, it actually turns out the Valar, they're holding the secret to immortality on their lands.
Of course they are.
And so over a long time span, Tarkalion began to get the idea, all I have to do is sail a massive army over to Valinor and beat the elves, and then I get immortality.
Well, if they did kind of trick him with the name, it is called the Immortal Lands.
The Undying Lands.
Undying Lands, see, that's pretty much the same thing.
Well, technically, it's more referred to, there's the main continent of Aman, and then there's a place called Tora Lissar, which is an island off the coast, but I'm just referring it to the whole thing as
Fair
the
enough.
Undying Lands for the sake of ease.
Yeah,
But, yeah, it was a name that it was known by as well. But, yeah, so Sauron convinced him, progressively over a long time, that he needed to sail to the place he was never allowed to sail to, and basically attack the elves and the Valar, and then he would be able to get immortality.
You fool.
Yes. And you got to bear in mind, especially when they built up a huge army, Numenor was actually quite strong and terrifying, even for the elves.
Oh, yeah.
So, not good for them. Anyway, but around this time...
it's not just the elves. There's 14 gods on that place as well.
Yep. But they also... This is a point when the men of Numenor began to split.
Oh.
So you had the King's Men, who was the vast majority of the island, and they followed the king. They were worshippers of Morgoth. You had one small faction of Númenóreans, known as the Faithful, or the Elendili, and they were followers of a lord named Amandil. Amandil was the father of Elendil.
So one of the Valar?
Which... No.
Who's this guy? Is this an elf?
He's a Númenórean.
Oh, he's just one of the Númenóreans. Okay.
Yeah, Númenórean. So Amandil, he's one of the Númenóreans, but he stuck true to their way of worshipping the Valar.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and he's the grandfather of Isildur.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's that connection there for you, Matt.
Isildur.
Cast into the fire.
I don't know what
Also,
we're referencing.
also known as Aragorn's great ancestor.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is where Aragorn's line comes into it.
Yeah.
So, you've got Amandil, who basically gets he's got all of his followers, known as the Faithful, and they maintain good relations with the elves. They try to keep as friendly with them as they can. They're like, the rest of our people are horrible, we know, we're sorry, we're trying to still be good.
That's like Australians when
after-
talking about the Queenslanders.
Okay, we've already kind of put a lot of our comments down to just being Australian based, and now we're fucking subdividing that even.
Well, I've already installed Tasmania, so I might as well keep going.
Share the love. Anyway,
No, we love you, Queensland
so,
and Tasmania. Love you both.
So anyway, Sauron's corruption complete, Tarkalion began to build the largest armada in Númenor's history, and began planning his attack on the Undying Lands, determined to fight the Valar and take his immortality.
What a fool.
Yep. But when Amandil, who's the leader of the Faithful, he heard about this plan, because he's one of the lords of Númenor, he got all of his family, and his followers and his followers' family, so loads and loads of people. He got them to hide in great ships off the coast of Numenor to distance themselves from the island as much as they could. And then he himself, despite the fact that there was a ban on them travelling to Valinor, or the Undying Lands, he himself tried to sail there because he wanted to warn the Valar, because he was like, this is going to go so badly, they're going to kill stupid amounts of elves, then the Valar are going to have to get involved.
Surely get a phone. Surely there's a phone line.
He has no way of contacting them. So he decides that he's going to try and sail there to warn them himself.
No.
We never know if he succeeds or not. He is never heard from again.
Oh, well, that could only have gone well then.
He probably just died at sea. Like, he's probably just a really shit sailor.
So, no, the Numenorians were very good sailors, but anyway. So Tokalion disregards all the warnings of elves and gods and sets sail for the Undying Lands with a huge armada. Which it has such a special armada that it has its own name in like Tolkien's mythology called the Armament.
Oh no. Really bad ships.
And when because he sailed there, he landed on the shores of the Undying Lands. So vast was their army and like powerful and everything that the Valar stood down their guardianship of Arda and called upon Error.
Oh no. That's
Remember
it's
how
his
I
second
said-
intervention.
Oh, big god
His
man.
second intervention, yes. And then Eru was incredibly disappointed.
Oh my god, he's just like, what the fuck,
And
guys?
he influenced the world. He buried all of Tarkalion's army that had landed under sand and stone.
What? That's OP.
He sunk their entire fleet,
Excellent.
What a shame.
and he brought the island of Numenor back underneath the waves.
He Atlantis it, basically.
Yep.
Which
killed
this major city was the best city of the world. Yeah, that's a really Atlantis story. It's fucking good.
It's pretty good.
which killed
They grew too big for
all
their
of
boots.
which killed all of their remaining kind, including Sauron, who was on the island when it sunk.
Killed Sauron.
Killed Sauron.
He did. He
But
ghosted.
Sauron can't really die, so.
Because he's a Maya, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
But it did, I will get into this a little bit later on, it does destroy Sauron's body, which vastly diminishes his power, which is why when we see him at the time of Lord of the Rings, well, not so much time Lord of the Rings, because that's a bit different once again, but you know how he has that one big main metal dude form?
Yeah.
That's the form that he's kind of stuck in, because he gets destroyed by Eru.
Question, though.
Okay.
If he's wearing his ring and it gets sunk, what happened to the ring?
He managed to keep the ring with his spirit, I guess, because it was basically a part of him.
I guess, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, but there was a small exception of Numenorians who didn't die in the
Yeah.
island sinking,
Woo.
and that was Elendil, the son of Amandil, the one that sailed to Valinor to try and
Yeah.
warn them,
The people who were faithful, the faithful ones.
The good ones.
faithful. And somehow, through the terrible storm that no one else managed to escape, him and all of the people that were with him managed to escape.
That's got to be some godly shit there.
So it is considered a high possibility that Amandil did in fact reach Valinor, and it's because of his warning that his people were able to survive.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those theorized things, but never really confirmed.
Yeah.
But
poor
it's
guy.
heavily hinted at points. But yeah, anyway. So during this huge event, the sinking of Numenor, Eru was pretty pissed, so he changed the entire world.
Just
What?
hit shuffle.
Wait.
Yeah.
Why did it shuffle?
This is when
I'm just imagining
the world,
a press shuffle and the world just moves around.
You know how I said the world was flat?
Oh,
no.
excellent.
You know when you get really
the
mad at a piece of
entire
paper and you
West.
crumple it up into a ball? Yeah. That's
Basically, the west part of the world, which is where the Undying Lands were,
Yeah.
he separates that from the main world, and then makes the rest of the world into a round thing.
So it's not technically part of the world anymore.
No.
What? So it's like he like raises into like heaven, like a different dimension,
Yeah.
basically, and
Excellent.
then makes the rest of the world
a
round.
single. Yep.
So you can't
there
actually
is
get
a
to Numenor by
single-
sailing west anymore.
you can. There is a single hidden straight pathway in the sea that only the elves can find. So that's why the elves and the elves alone can sail there now.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And even then, they have to set out from the Grey Havens, where Círdan makes their boats, because it's a very precise course they have to go. Think of it like there's an entire round world, but a small corridor that leads off to like a side world.
So it's like it's like a secret door, but you have to like follow the exact track to get in.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
You got to know the code.
Exactly. So the survivors of Númenor, those of them that escaped, they managed to land on the shores of Middle-earth.
Mm-hmm.
Elendil, he landed in Lindon, where he was greeted very friendly by the elves. They were like, good to see that you survived that madness. Because him and Gil-galad, for example, because obviously Gil-galad's still around as king at this point. And Elendil and Gil-galad became quite friendly. But his two sons, Isildur and Anarion, they landed more to the east in what is now Gondor.
They missed.
So you had one went to Gondor and one went to the Elven lands.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, both of the sons went to Gondor, and the dad went to Lindon. Mm-hmm. It wasn't deliberate. They were trying to stick together, but because of the storm and the sinking of Númenor, they were kind of blown off on random courses.
Random.
Yeah.
Random with air quotes, because God's behind this thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, after some time of regrouping, the faithful, along with the existing faithful that lived in Plagir already, because remember I mentioned that settlement they had?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. So all those guys, which was a Númenorian settlement, they began to create two kingdoms of Arnor. The two kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor, which were two new kingdoms. And Arnor is basically between the two. Just looking at any old map of Middle-earth, you've got the big misty mountains in the middle, and then you've got the blue mountains in the west. That huge area of land in between basically becomes Arnor. So like the Shire, for example, where the Shire is in modern day, used to be a part of the realm of Arnor.
Oh,
okay. It's a huge realm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stook.
Once again, simplifying a little bit for the sake of ease, but yes.
Yeah, no, I see it on the map now. It's actually labelled Arnor. The Lost Realm of Arnor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Yes, so you've got Gondor and Arnor at this point, and Elendil, he was the High King of Arnor and Gondor. But he remained in Arnor, while Isildur and his brother Anarion stayed in Gondor, because they knew Gondor was close to Mordor, so they were like, we need to keep a close eye on this.
Yeah.
Keep your eye out.
And then Isildur's house took up residence in a place called Minas Ithil.
Minas Ithil, that sounds familiar.
Yep, you will see why it's familiar soon. And Anarion took up a new residence and made a huge city known as Minas Anor, which would eventually become Minas Tirith.
Oh, okay.
Minas Tirith.
So Minas Tirith is where Anarion originally ruled from.
Okay.
And this is also where the
kind of still exist, but are just real twisted.
Yep. Okay. Slightly. Minas Tirith and Minas Anor and Minas Tirith are fairly close from memory, but Minas Ithil does change quite a lot for reasons you'll see soon. So we're getting towards the end of the Second Age in this broad overview, but this one thing that becomes pretty important here is the Palantir, which are the seeing stones that you see Saruman use, etc.
Oh, the big orb.
Full of a tuck.
The big orb. Yep. So the Palantir, they were seeing stones which were made back in the time before the First Age by the elves.
Wow.
And they were given as a gift to the men of Númenor. And then they were just kind of a thing in Númenor. They're like, oh yeah, these are cool, we'll just kind of keep them.
Like a phone.
But when Númenor sank, Elendil managed to save 7 of the stones from sinking to the bottom of the ocean. And with them, he held 1 in Arnor, and then he gave 1 to each of his sons, so that they could all communicate.
Yeah, that would be useful.
And then the other ones were just kind of spread throughout Arnor and other places, etc. That's not too important right now. But anyway, so they each had the Palantir to communicate with each other.
Okay.
And the point of Minas Anor and Minas Ithil, they were on opposing sides of the main river that runs through Middle-earth, the Anduin, which you can see kind of close to Mordor, that massive river.
Oh, yeah, that one, vertical.
Yeah, just like, So, because that's where Minas Tirith is, and then the other side of the river, very close to Mordor, is where Minas Ithil was.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, once again, this is going to cut out a huge chunk of history that deserves its own standalone episode, to be honest. But I think for the sake of... for the sake of making it a bit easier for you guys, I'm going to quickly go through this brief timeline that Tolkien has of the Second Age. And when I say brief, it actually is brief, not Tolkien brief.
How close are we to the end of the end of the Second Age?
Quite very close.
Okay, cool.
So it's literally a page and a third, this timeline. So it'll take like 3 seconds to go through. So year 1 was the foundations of the Grey Havens and Lindon.
Yeah, we knew that. Yep.
Year 32 was the men reaching Numenor.
Okay.
So they made Numenor and then took 32 years to get over there. Well,
it took some time to get there and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yep. And then in 442 was the death of Elros. Remember Elrond's brother?
Oh, yeah.
The man elf?
442. So he lasted about 500 years, nearly 500.
Yeah. Well, he died exactly at 500 because he lived for a few years before the before the Second Age.
That's really satisfying, actually. Exactly 500 years.
Perfect.
Then what's the word? Sauron begins to stir in Middle-earth in the year 500.
Okay.
The first ships of Numenor begin to appear in Middle-earth at 600.
They're spreading out their
That's when they first, when they start to become friendly with the elves, everything. 750 is when Eregion gets founded by the elves.
Okay.
The year 1000, Sauron is starting to get a bit scared by the Númenóreans, so he chooses to settle Mordor, and he begins building Barad-dûr, which is... Eventually, Barad-dûr is the castle that will have his the Eye of Sauron on the top of it.
Yeah, the big powerful place.
Yeah. Then there's the first Queen of Numenor after that. But after that, in the year 1200, Sauron seduces the elves, and they start making the rings. In the year 1500, the rings are actually made by the elven forgers.
Took 300 years. Whoa.
Hey, that's in terms of like him actually. That's the word. Him seducing them still to make the rings. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It still took 300
and also,
then
you fucking try making a ring that turns people into nasty motherfuckers.
Can we just appreciate Sauron? Sauron plays the long game. Like, I know he's a mortal.
He plays a really
he plays that long game well.
Yeah.
When you consider that his long game also goes into the Third Age, he plays the long game.
Yeah, he does. Like you got to appreciate that long thinking. Thanks, guy.
Anyway,
good business manager. Strategic.
So then in the year 1590, the 3 rings for the elves are finished.
Good banker.
And then in 1600, Sauron forges the One Ring, and he completes his fortress. And that it's at that point, once he makes his evil fortress, that Celebrimbor goes, "Oh yeah, you're super not good."
Now
he's like, "Oh yeah, you got that evil fortress with clouds over it and thunderstorms."
I remember. All that good advice doesn't really cancel out the fact that we did bring you here as a prisoner.
No,
that's the next one. That's the next one.
Yeah,
he still does that again.
You still got a few thousand years, man.
Fuck.
That's right. So then in 1693, the War of the Elves and Sauron begins. So that's what the first war we talked about.
Yeah.
And then 1695, Sauron invades Eregion, which is Eregion, and Gil-galad sends Elrond. 1697, Eregion's destroyed, Celebrimbor dies, Gates of Moria are shut, and Elrond creates Imladris, or Rivendell. Then was 1700, so only a few years after, so pretty quickly, is when the Númenórean army sent by a Tar minister arrives.
Oh, yeah. So it only took him like 40 years to get there.
Yeah. Took him a few years to put a huge army together, but yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Then in 1701, Sauron's driven out of Eregion, and the Westlands have peace for a long while.
Oh, thank God.
Love it.
They deserve that peace.
Finally.
They've earned it.
They have.
Yes. Then in 1800, this is when the Númenóreans begin to establish dominions on the coast all around.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So they've got those colonies.
Yep. And Sauron begins to extend his powers far to the east, which is where lots of men come from that would serve him later on. Yes, and this is when the shadow starts to fall on Númenor in terms of them distancing themselves from the elves a bit. Then we get to those things. We'll skip over that. Then Ar-Pharazôn the Golden seizes the scepter in 3255. So this is a long time after the other war.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
That is a long
is,
time. Holy shit.
Yep. And then it takes all the way until 32. So 3262 is when Sauron's taken a prisoner to Númenor.
Okay. So that's the second
and then
war.
it's between
really
the years. Yeah, the second war that didn't really happen, and then between the years 3262 and 3310 is Sauron seducing the king of Númenor. So it's a long time.
Yeah, it took about a few hundred years.
Takes a little bit of time to forget all those war crimes.
Yeah, that'll
That'll take a little while to
then-
buff out.
Yes.
to be upgraded from
1310.
prisoner to head advisor.
Prisoner to
prisoner
servant
to
to head
king's-
advisor.
Yep. Then in 1310, Tarkalion, the final Númenor king, he begins building his great army then, the Great Armament. And then Tarkalion sails to Valinor, the Undying Lands, in 1319.
Okay. So it took him
And then
9
it's about
years.
it took him a long time. Like, it's a huge army.
13, 9...
No, but
took
9
him-
years isn't that long in this timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
It's only
It
9
isn't. It
years.
isn't. And then
pretty
it
well.
was a year after that when the realms in exile, so Arnor and Gondor, they get made a year after in 3320.
Yeah.
And then that brings us to the very final thing, down to my last couple lines of notes here, which is weirdly enough, the main thing, whenever you mention Second Age, the first thing that comes to people's minds that know
end.
about Second Age is the Last Alliance, which is the huge, massive conflict where the elves and men fight together to defeat Sauron finally, because he's using the One Ring to take over everything.
Yeah, the third
and
war,
this
that
is-
actually something happened.
Yep. And this is the war that you see the end of at the start of Lord of the Rings movies. For
So
your
you've seen
sake,
this
Matt.
guy.
Yeah.
Guy, you have seen this. This is this is like the first scene.
The one where his fingers get chopped off?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That one.
So, the first major event of the war, Sauron attacks Minas Ithil, which is the place where Isildur lives.
Yeah.
And he pretty much completely destroys it. Isildur just manages to escape with his life. But, important thing, Sauron takes the Palantir, the Seeing Stone,
Oh.
Okay.
Interesting.
which is how he has the Seeing Stone in the Third Age. If you remember when, for example, Pippin tries to use, he touches the Seeing Stone and then it goes all Sauron.
Yeah.
And also, the reason that Saruman got corrupted in the first place is because he had a
talking to
Seeing
him.
Stone, he used it, and then Sauron used the Seeing Stone to corrupt Saruman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Interesting.
That's how he gets the Seeing Stone, because he takes Minas Ithil, and he takes it so quickly that Isildur's not able to escape with it in time.
Yeah.
And then Minas Ithil, after falling to Mordor and being corrupted over a very long time, becomes Minas Morgul, which is what you will know, Matt.
Oh yeah. That's the White
Yeah.
City, right?
The kind of glowing green one that they go past when
Oh,
Frodo
that
and Sam
one.
are trying to... Yeah.
Oh
There's
yeah.
so much
yeah,
hope
yeah,
in your
yeah.
voice, Matt.
Yeah, I got that wrong. But yeah, it's the one where the Nazguls come out of, right?
Yeah, where the Witch King comes from.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Because it's given to the Witch King as like his area before the start of the War of the Ring.
Okay. Cool.
So yes, that originally was a Númenorian city, but it got taken over. So then follows the Great War against Sauron, in which elves, men, dwarves, and all sorts of other things are forced to fight against Sauron and his dark forces.
yeah.
The dwarves came out. I've just noticed that dwarves
Oh, yeah.
have been chilling and doing their own stuff. I love. There could be a whole side episode of what are the dwarves doing while everything's shit's going down.
They get heavily
dwarves up
involved,
to?
but one of the things that happens in this war in particular, which the elves hold against the dwarves a bit, there's actually dwarves on both sides of the war.
What?
Oh, no.
Yeah, some dwarves fought for Sauron.
They were corrupted by the rings.
No? They weren't. I thought that we said that earlier. They didn't get corrupted because they only got gold hungry.
I thought they were corrupted a little.
It wasn't so much. They were. It was more just their falling to greed and stuff.
Yeah, they were just shitheads.
Yeah. And yes, some of the dwarves did fight for Sauron in this war, but also some fought for the side of good. And ultimately, it turned into Gil-galad leading the forces of good against Sauron being the main person of the evil.
I see.
But of course, you had Elendil, who was the High King of Gondor and Arnor, and then you had his two sons, who were pretty important as well.
Yeah.
And then huge things once again here that could be like a 3-hour episode on its own because there's so many different battles in this entire war.
To just make it's just like, oh hey, it's Jude week again. What are we doing? Lord of the Rings.
Middle
Fuck,
Earth.
I would never have guessed.
Hey Jude, are we done with the War of the Last Alliance yet? No, never.
We've got. Yes, we had first episode. Second episode.
You
Oh
can't.
God.
Yes, we've had 26th episode, but what about 27th?
We've had one war, yes. What about second war of the?
We've had 4 kings, yes. What about 5?
What about the 20th?
What about the
Okay,
20th?
okay. I'm
about them
legit
dwarves?
about
What are
to
they
finish,
up
I
to?
swear. Believe me. So the main, because you can simplify the Last Alliance into 2 main battles.
Yeah.
Go, Jude.
The first one is the Battle of Dagorlad, which is where years later would become the Dead Marshes.
Ah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one
So the
that
reason
Frodo,
the Dead
Frodo and Sam
Marshes,
go through.
yep, where there's all the dead corpses of like ancient elves and humans.
Yeah, and they fall in the
Yep.
river and there's like skeletons and shit.
Yeah, surprise me.
Yeah, there's like dead bodies of elves and stuff. That's because the elves and men fought Sauron there.
Ah, makes sense.
And then it turns into a marsh, etc.
That's kind of brushed over. Hang on, why does it turn into a marsh? Just
Magic,
get wet.
okay? It's magic, okay, guys?
It's magic.
Move
That's
on.
Sauron. Make it wet.
Anyway, so this kind of a morbidly funny thing was like one of the first things when I ever started researching this like years ago, like all this expanded universe, I always found a little amusing. So the King of Mirkwood, Oropher, who was Thranduil, you remember Thranduil in the Hobbit movies?
I think so.
Nope.
The main, Legolas's dad, the main elven
Oh,
king
yeah,
in the
that's
Hobbit.
the guy I was thinking of before when you were talking about elves. This
Right,
guy,
okay.
Legolas's dad. Yeah, the guy who looks like an elf.
the one that rides a big stag.
Yeah, the guy who actually looks like it.
Does Guy remember?
No.
There's a look it up. There's a good meme.
Guy
of
doesn't
him,
remember his co-workers.
Anyway.
Names. He sure as shit ain't gonna remember the fucking name of one random elf in a movie that he watched 3 years ago.
Yeah.
No, but he's a pretty major character. Anyway, okay.
3 years ago.
He's
That
like
movie
the
is
one,
all
one
but
non-important.
purged
elf
from
in
my
the-
mind.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway,
Not important. I'll
been
talk to Matt.
Over. I'll just
So
mute myself.
Thranduil's.
thanks for coming, guy.
So
Yeah, thanks. I'll just dip out. It's just.
so Matt.
Yeah.
Thranduil's dad, Oropher.
Yeah.
He was the king of Mirkwood at this point.
Yeah.
But he didn't like Gil-galad very much.
Who would? Yeah, fair.
But yes, because Wood Elf, High Elf, you get the idea.
Yeah.
And there is also Amdir, the king of Lorien at the time.
Yeah.
And the two of them, because they were both Wood Elves, they were like, hang on a minute, we don't really like this guy. We'll follow him because we need to beat Sauron, but whatever.
Yeah. Greater good,
So,
Greater good.
yeah, exactly. But at the Battle of Dagorlad, they decided they weren't going to listen to Gil-galad's commands, so them and all of their forces charged prematurely.
Oh
No, that's never gonna go
Which
well.
resulted in the death of both kings
Oh, excellent.
Both kings
and
dead.
pretty much all of their army.
2 kings, 1 army.
So that's
Two
so that's
for the price of
when
one.
Thranduil became king of Mirkwood because his dad died doing that stupid thing.
Of course.
Fair enough.
And because Amdir died and his son didn't want to take the throne of Lorien, that's when Galadriel and her partner became the Lord and Lady of Lothlorien.
There you go.
Yeah, I feel like being like an elven like prince would be tough because your dad's like immortal, so waiting for him to die would take a long time.
Yeah.
Anyone
Yep.
spoken to the current prince?
Legolas?
No, the actual prince in England.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
fair
go
enough.
Prince
The
Charles.
Queen fucking refuses to die.
Yeah, but the Queen's immortal. We know this.
Precisely.
She is an immortal being.
I'm drawing in parallel between these two.
Yep.
Okay,
Refusing
fair.
to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay, fair.
so ultimately Gil-galad's forces managed to win the Battle of Dagorlad, but it's very costly. And this is where the dead marshes are now, from all the dead men and elves.
Yeah.
And then the final thing of the war is Gil-galad and his surviving army attacking the actual land of Mordor itself.
Yes, this is what we see in the movie.
They lay siege to Barad-dûr first.
Mm-hmm.
And during the siege, Isildur's brother Anarion, he dies.
Oh, that's sad.
I'm definitely 100% don't quote me on this because I read it once and now I cannot find the actual reference for it at all. So as far as I'm concerned, it is definitely not legit Tolkien. But I think I remember seeing that Anarion dies when they're sieging Barad-dûr. He tries to lead an attack on the gate because they can't breach the gate. So he's like, I'm going to lead an attack, we're going to take the gate. And in the attack, an orc drops a stone from like a huge rock from high up.
Just a little pub.
And it drops a rock from high up and it crushes Anarion's head.
It'll
which is
do that.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal. But I say, I can't find that, so definitely don't quote me on it.
Hey, we're only going to record this and play it back for you all the times you're ever wrong. This is only going to be on the record forever.
Yeah.
So don't worry about
heads
it.
already.
Hey,
Until the end.
Jude's the editor. This is definitely not in.
Oh no, damn it.
Yep.
This is all going to be bleeped out.
So, final thing, after they siege Barad-dûr, Sauron is forced to come out and fight them himself. And when he comes down to fight them, that is, of course, when, in the battle, he kills King Gil-galad and he kills King Elendil.
Yeah.
And just when it looks like they are going to lose to Sauron, Isildur manages to chop off his hand, chop off the finger with the ring.
His broken sword.
With the broken sword of his father.
Yeah.
Narsil, and picks up the ring, and with that Sauron is defeated.
Cast it into the fire.
Into the fire.
Cast
And
it.
with that,
Into the
at
fire.
approximately year, because that's after the other stuff, sorry, I dropped my book and lost the page very annoyingly.
No!
Here it is. So that is year 3441.
Okay.
So it's a very long time after everything else.
Yeah. So like in the movie, so they come, so that they're like winning the siege, they're winning the fight, and then Sauron hits the battlefield, and they're like, oh shit, we lost this. He's destroying everyone because he's fucking, he's like half god, he's a demigod, he's just wiping the floor with everyone with his ring of power, and then Isildur gets like a sneaky shot on him because he looks down on the humans, like he's not even like a threat, and he gets like a sneaky shot with his dad's sword, and then gets defeated. So Sauron was defeated with his own ignorance or like arrogance.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah.
He was a human slain by a mouse.
I guess.
pretty
Yeah. You don't see that mouse is dangerous
and,
until it pulls a knife on you. You know.
The fucking knife. The mouse
This
pulls
is
the
the
knife
keys to
on
the
me and
kingdom,
cut my
goddammit.
fingers off, I'd take it a bit more seriously.
No, it's like a soul. So he'd cut your heart out.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Also cool thing. Well, I find cool. You know how there's the 3 elven rings I mentioned.
Yeah.
They're squirreled away.
Yep, Galadriel had one, Gil-galad had one, and Círdan had one.
Yeah.
Before going to battle against Sauron, because Gil-galad had been using the ring to boost his own power and keep his kingdom alive and everything, and
That
keep
does make
himself
sense.
alive for
That
a long
does make
time.
sense.
He went, we're gonna fight the dude who can basically control these rings and beat me if I'm wearing it close by. I'm not gonna bring this into war.
That's smart.
idea.
Smart
So
idea.
he gives it to Círdan, so there's a point in time where Círdan has 2 rings of power.
Oh God! Does he do anything cool?
So there's
Does he do anything cool, or does he just feel cool?
he gives them both away.
Oh, that's actually, you know what? I think that's the coolest thing he could have done.
That's
yeah,
true.
Charity
do you think
is
he?
very cool.
Do you think he had like a day where he just went fucking wild with power, like just went no, and then was like,
Well,
no,
it's
this
also
is too much.
it is
guys."
worth
I
noting. I think from memory, let me double check this. I'm pretty sure Círdan is one of if not the oldest elf outside of the Undying Lands. So perhaps the fact that he had 2 rings of power is why he's able to be so old.
Ooh, maybe he's just a really old guy who has 2 rings on. He's just reading a book in a rocking chair. Like,
If he's
you
so
bloody
old,
kids.
the fact that he's got 2 rings but he gives them away, like, but he still gets old after that. So, like,
Yeah.
do you
Well,
just
it's
need
like-
to, like, get 1 hit of that ring juice and you're good?
No, it's to do with the amount of time they have it. So, like, Bilbo, for example, he has the ring. He lives for, like, an extra probably 30 years or so with the ring. And then he's still alive, like, he'd be, I can't remember off the top of my head, but after, like,
130 something?
let's see, it's 15 years at the start of the book, so he's up to, like, 130. He'd be close to, like, well over 150 by the end of the books, probably even older.
And
then-
Gollum lived for centuries
Yeah, exactly.
with the Ring of Power. So, yeah.
And thing as well, so I just double checked. Círdan was nearly 11,000 years old.
Jesus.
Excuse me, 11,000? At that point, yeah, I would give up the rings and go, yeah, I think I've had enough time on this earth, man.
Yeah, listen.
It's time to go.
He's-
Yeah, because he's like, he was alive during the early First Age, so
Yeah.
he has seen everything happen.
If you trust anyone with the Rings of Power, that guy is the trustworthy. He's been around for long enough.
And then he gives them to, because also you will notice that Gandalf hasn't been in this story at all.
Yeah, where the fuck has he been?
Where's he been chilling?
He doesn't come to Middle-earth until the Third Age.
Then the wizards come. Yeah.
They come during the Third Age.
Because Sauron gone
okay.
fucked everything up.
Will we talk about the Third Age eventually?
Eventually, I might talk about the Third Age. The Third Age is even bigger than the Second Age, but anyway.
But people know more about the Third Age, so.
Yeah, they do. So it's probably more of a split off into individual episodes with these. But yeah,
Okay.
Last Alliance is...
Yeah.
That's that.
That's that? Awesome.
Yeah, that's
Can
that.
I have one last question before we wrap this up? So,
yeah.
Oh, well, unless you want to do anything more, of course. But
No, you go.
But,
You go. I'm terrified.
But so you know how the big god
God Supreme.
he gets involved and does stuff, and like bad things happen, and the gods even worry and stuff like that, you know. And they haven't taken human form, so they still know the plan, right? Like they still have the
No. The Valar do have physical form.
Oh, I see. Okay, but Super God, in his original plan, he must have written, because he's written the whole universe out, he must have known he's going to have to come in and do stuff. I guess?
Well, yes
Or did the
and
plan
no,
change?
because it isn't necessarily an exact plan.
So it's like a rough dot point of what should happen.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But when something's gone wrong, he
Things
has
can
to step
still,
in
yeah.
and go like,
Yeah.
guys, I had a fucking plan. Come on, and he's... And he has to like correct it a little bit. I see that.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
makes sense.
Yeah.
He's like the referee. Everyone knows the rules of the game, but sometimes people break them, so he has to step in and fix it.
Yeah. One other little
Yeah.
bit. Who's the coolest Valar? Because I know that we've got our nasty boy Margot, but
Yeah,
do you want to know about the cool ones?
Just tell us one Valar, because I know we're running out of time. But one Valar, why he's the coolest? What is the one cool fact about him that makes him the coolest?
I mean, personally, I think Manwë is the coolest.
Manwë,
Okay,
tell me more about my boy.
Why?
Because
you get one thing.
No, don't give him one thing. Just do it short.
just a short thing, yeah. He is technically the brother of Morgoth. And he's the king of Arda. So he's the king of the entire world.
Oh, excellent.
That does sound pretty cool to be the king of the entire world.
Yeah.
I'm imagining
him and Morgoth were the two strongest of the Valar.
So they were like the
imagining,
first made. It's kind of like
a Christmas.
like
I'm
Michael
imagining,
the
like,
Archangel and Lucifer, right?
Listen. I'm imagining like Christmas Carol, like Jim Carrey version. Goes to Christmas Present. That's my boy.
I like how
sure.
you and me describe two different things when we hear about that. I go to the illusion of like what it's like based off. It's like you just think of the Christmas Carol and that.
Hey, listen, I'm here, a cool guy who's king of the world. I'm seeing a big, cool Santa Claus.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. And also he's like the Lord of the Eagles and stuff, everything like that. So that's kind of cool.
That's
Hell
pretty cool.
yeah!
Love the Eagles.
Good Maya,
yeah,
absolute, good Valar.
The Eagles, yeah. the eagles are like his direct people, so to speak.
They're his sons.
Yeah.
His people.
It's like the AFL teams. It's just like, oh, we
Yes,
choose
sure.
like the
Let's go with
Tigers, I guess. I choose the Demons. Hey, what the fuck? You can't do that.
That's too cool. That's illegal.
It's too cool.
Yep.
I guess I would have like a taller human. I want birds.
Okay.
Anyway,
Cool.
yes,
Is that it?
that was a weird living by the law look at the second age of Middle Earth.
Excellent.
I personally love that.
That was
great.
very, very good, G.
I know there's so much information buzzing around my head right now, and I'm gonna have to digest that now.
Listen, I'm gonna be doing some. I'm gonna be finding out about these eagles because I just kind of assumed they were big eagles, but now I see that they're more than just a pretty bird. It's about looking beyond the surface.
Yeah.
So, anyway, thank you for listening to Living by the Law, and goodbye.
Good night.
Good evening.
Fuck.
Thank you for listening to Living by the Law. If you enjoyed our podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes and tell your friends. Also, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Living by the Law to keep updated on all the latest about our podcast. We have been, and always will be, living by the law. Thank you for your company, and good night.